Well, James Gunn has finally released his upcoming slate of DC stuff, and stuff is the exact word that comes across to me. When you actually see the slate that he has planned, his grand plan, it just feels like, oh, you're just doing a bunch of stuff. No, it's definitely underwhelming. It's definitely a disappointment, especially when I said when it first came out that James Gunn was going to be the head of DC. I thought, oh, that could be a good idea. And then I've seen this announcement, and I'm just like, what? A lot of the stuff in this that has been announced is I just don't think is a good idea. You know, it could be maybe there is a plan behind it all, but some of the movies and some of the TV shows that are coming out, I'm just like, you need every movie to be a success. You need it to be good. You need it to be hitting almost $1 billion, especially when you look at how much in debt Warner Brothers is. It's like you need every movie to be a hit. And I just think with what is shown in here, we're not looking at that. You know, again, I don't know if any of this stuff is going to be worthwhile. I don't know if there is some good plan behind it. But just the announcements on its own, I'm just like, I don't see how you're going to get any interest, really, from some of these movies. But I think rather than, we'll just kind of jump into the announcement that came out from James Gunn, and we'll just go through every little bit. But yeah, some of these movies and TV shows, I'm just like, what the fuck are these decisions? I just think when it comes to DC, they shouldn't be looking at planning for 10 years. They should just be going, we need one good movie, and then we can take off from that. That's what you need to do. That's all this announcement should be, is just we have a Superman movie in the works. Here's who we've cast. That's all the announcement should be. It just seems like when it's all this other stuff, I'm like, how is this any different to Marvel? Where it feels like we're just spamming shit. We're just hitting that spam button and just hoping that it works out. It's like, just make one good movie, and then you can take it from there. But some of the stuff in here, I'm like, why are you going in this direction with these? It's like you should be. This should all start with Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Green Arrow, Green Lanterns, which is in here. It should be all the heavy hitters that everybody knows, regardless if you read comics or not. But we just have loads of choices here where I'm like, even from my perspective of not even reading, many comics, there's stuff in here where I'm like, I don't know who the fuck that is. When you should have at the forefront to start off with is the people that everybody knows, the general public. That is the only way to make any of this successful. But let's jump in and see what James Gunn has to say about this whole lineup.
Hey everybody, I'm James Gunn. I'm the co-CEO of DC Studios. So as many of you know, DC has been disconnected in film and television for a long time.
But, while that's been an issue with the DC universe, that's not really the main problem, is it? The main problem is it's just been shit movie after shit movie. That's why it's never went anywhere. So I wouldn't really say that is the biggest issue of it all. It's mainly just shit films.
One of, our jobs, mine and Peter's, is to come in and make sure the DCU is connected in film, television, gaming, and animation.
And you also just, again, need to make sure it's good. You need, again, they need every project to be of excellent quality. That's what they need for this to work. It's not as much as, oh, it's connected. Everything's, yeah, but how good is it? That's the main priority.
Characters are consistent, played by the same actors, and it works within one story. And if something is outside of that, like Matt Reeves' Batman or Todd Phillips' Joker or Teen Titans Go, that it is clearly labeled as DC Elseworlds, outside of the mainstream DCU continuity. Now, Peter and I have gotten pretty lucky in terms of the 4 projects that are coming out over the next year. First,
I wouldn't really call that lucky that you got 4 shit films. most likely to put out before you get to the actual main part, till you actually get to the reboot.
We have Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Shazam has always been off kind of in his own part of the DCU, so he connects very well.
I don't really see how that makes any sense. Shazam has always been on its own, but that connects into... I don't really see the logic in that. But that's the first movie of this year. What is it? 4 movies we got this year from DC. And to be honest, again, in this video, he's going to hype them up because, you know, everybody knows these films are fucking pointless because they don't go anywhere. You know, regardless if they're good films or not, they don't... Once we're done with them, we're done with them. I think when it comes to the actors that are actually playing in these 4 films, the only way they're going to continue on in DC is if the films do well. That's the only way. If that isn't... Because I know it's kind of going about with, you know, you've got rid of Henry Cavill, but not, you know, Ezra Miller. But I think that just comes down to, well, we've got films coming out for them, so we're not actually going to say they're not a part of it, because then there is no point to go and see these films, which there isn't anyway, because it's not connected to anything. It's just on its own, pretty much.
Well, that moves directly into The Flash, a fantastic movie that I really love. That,
you know, you probably had to record that more than once. Do we think The Flash is going to be fantastic? Because it sounds like a fucking mess to me. All I'm looking at of that film is something to fucking roast, really, because I don't see it being any good whatsoever. Ezra Miller as the Flash, again, the shittiest pick for the Flash you could have went with.
That resets the entire DC universe. And then to move into Blue Beetle, a fantastic film about a kid who's a marvelous part of the DCU, and then into Aquaman 2, which leads directly into our next few projects, which I'm going to tell you about now. So, Peter and I, along with a group of very talented writers, have started to map out an 8 to 10 year plan of what DC Studios will...
But, you know, again, as I've said, it's not that you... You know, not that you can't have an outline for what you can do, but the focus should be on getting one good movie out that is a success. That's what should be the focus, but instead we're spending time on, we need a 10-year plan. Yeah, but your 10-year plan doesn't mean shit if the first movie out the gate is awful. So that's why you just need the focus to be on one good movie. That is all you need. And then you take it from there. But instead we need a 10-year plan. Why? You need to get one good movie first. Because you're talking about a 10-year plan. It's like, for all we know, we could end up with shit after shit, and then it just goes nowhere. And Warner Brothers have just wasted a load of more money on rebooting their universe again.
Be in film, television, and gaming. This first chapter is called Gods and Monsters. Now, what I'm about to tell you, is a part of the first chapter. It's not the entire first chapter. The first project is Creature Commandos.
So, yeah, of course, my first thing is, you're gonna... This big announcement, you're gonna start with a fucking animation. An animation! Creature Commandos. That's... Again, I'm not saying none of these projects are gonna be good, but you don't lead with a fucking animation. You know, if you have stuff like this that is going to come out first, it's like, maybe put that at the back end. I think if you're starting off your announcement on Creature Command, you've already lost everybody. You know, I don't know what it is. Again, I don't know if it's going to be good or not. But you're trying to start up a universe. You don't do it with a fucking animation. Again, whether it comes out first or not, it's like, yeah, put that at the back end of the video. Just, you know, oh, we've also got Creature Commandos. Instead, you should be leading with your first movie. That should be, you know, what it is.
Creature Commandos is an animated series. I've written all the episodes. Something we're going to do that's a little bit different at DC is we're going to have characters move into animation, out of animation, usually having the same actor play their voice as who plays them in live action.
You know, I'm probably more on the side. I quite like that decision, that if you're going to, you know, you have the voice actors as well, because, you know, people just prefer that, I think.
The next project up is Waller. This is a story of Amanda Waller who plays...
So of course that's definitely a an eye roll. It's Waller. Fucking, we're doing a TV show on Waller. Amanda Waller out of everybody. From what I understand, I guess it's more of a Suicide Squad thing, but it's like a show called, and you've just called it Waller. Right. You're not, again, you're not getting off on the good foot so far. We've had an animated show, and now we have a show called Waller. Again, it's very, very underwhelming so far, but let's let him continue.
Played by Viola Davis. Viola Davis is going to team up with members of Team Peacemaker, and this is a story that's been created by Crystal Henry, who did Watchmen, and Jeremy Carver.
And yeah, by the way, the person, when he says whoever it was that done the Watchmen, he's talking about the people that done the Watchmen TV show. You know, that show that was all about, I don't know, white supremacy and all that bollocks. So that's who they've got working on that show. That's not a good idea.
Who created the Doom Patrol. It is a fantastic story that's out of this world, and I can't wait for people to see it. Okay, next up is the big one, the true beginning of the DCU. This is called Superman Legacy. This is being...
So yeah, the title isn't very. I really hope that is a working title. Superman Legacy. It's like, no, that's that's like having The Dark Knight Returns as your first Batman movie. So yeah, I don't really get the title. You could have done Man of Tomorrow, whatever it is, but instead, as we'll soon find out, that's gone somewhere else. But we're starting off with Superman Legacy. But again, this is what you should lead with. I think the announcement should be, we're working on a Superman film. Here is the people we have cast. That should be the announcement. I think anything else is just, it just feels like you've just got stuff. We just started off with an animation, then Waller, and now we're on to Superman Legacy, a title that makes no fucking sense whatsoever. It's like, that's what you would have on his third or fourth movie. You go, Superman Legacy, this is where it all ends. That's usually where you put the legacy film.
Being written by me, I'm in the middle of it, I'm having a great time doing it, and Superman will be released into theaters July 11th, 2025. Okay, the next thing...
So, yeah, I don't know if that's... If you're... it's probably not going to come out in that date, but I wouldn't announce a date on that.
Is a big premiere...
But I guess Superman... So far, the only thing of interest is, of course, Superman. But I think they've already kind of fucked the title with that. I really do hope it's just a working title.
HBO television series called Lanterns. This is a story of a couple of Green Lanterns, John Stewart and Hal Jordan, and we have a few other lanterns peppered in there. But
so that I think so far this is the only one that Superman has interest because it's Superman, but this actually sounds really interesting. As he says, it's like a true detective story. It's like these cop story, buddy cop. So that could actually be really good. But that's the only thing where it's like, oh, that's quite a good one. Maybe lead with that. I don't know. Maybe not an animation.
This is really a terrestrial-based TV show, which is almost like True Detective with a couple of Green Lanterns who are space cops watching over Precinct Earth. In it, they discover a terrifying mystery that ties into our larger story of the DCU. Next is a big movie called The Authority. The Authority.
So, The Authority. Does anybody know who the fuck The Authority is? That's your second movie. You do a Superman movie, and then you do The Authority. Now, from what I understand about The Authority, essentially, rather than not beating around the bush, is just a knockoff of Justice League. You're going to do a group like that before you actually have a Justice League. Again, the majority of what we've seen so far just makes no sense. The Authority. Again, from my perspective, not knowing who the fuck this is, if I just heard, a film called The Authority, I wouldn't really think anything about it. It just, again, I see something like this, it just feels like you're just doing stuff. And as I've said, there could be a reason for it. Maybe there is a big reason behind it. But again, you can't be pissing about with stuff like this for your second movie. And, you know, most people are going to say, well, nobody knew Guardians of the Galaxy. The only difference is, though, they done Guardians of the Galaxy at the end of Phase 2. They didn't do it as the second movie. If they did it for the second movie, I don't think it would, you know, have done well at the box office as it did. So, you know, I'm just going to go with that one and say maybe you shouldn't be doing something called The Authority, that is essentially just another Justice League before you actually have a Justice League. But maybe there's an idea behind it. I'm not too sure, but if I was coming up with a universe, I would not go with The Authority for our second movie. Where's Batman? Where's Wonder Woman? I don't know. I honestly don't know what these decisions really are.
Authority is a passion project of mine. It's based on the marvelous Wildstorm.
And you'll notice he does say that a lot. It's, oh, this is a passion project of mine. But it's like, yeah, but that's not what you've been hired to do, is do your passion projects. You've been hired to make this universe a success. And again, this decision is essentially what we're looking at with The Authority is it's just the boys. That's, you know, it's just deconstructed heroes. That's really all The Authority is, from what I hear anyway.
Characters we are now bringing into the DCU and will interact with all of our primary DCU characters. The Authority are a group of superheroes who think the world is broken and they want to fix it by any means necessary. I think it's a very different look at superheroes. We're doing a television series called...
And that's really something I'm tired of hearing is, oh, it's a different take. How about just do traditional? You know, you do traditional, you take classic stories that, you know, are good and everybody likes, and everybody, at least that reads comics, knows about. That's what you should be going with. Not, we're doing a different take on... Why? For your second movie. So as you can tell, I'm pretty disappointed so far.
Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost is the story of Paradise Island, usually known as Themyscira, which is the birthplace of Wonder Woman. It's almost like Game of Thrones with Westeros, but
we've really got to get out of that as well, comparing... Oh, it's like Game of Thrones. I highly fucking doubt it. But Paradise Lost... You know, are they going to introduce Wonder Woman? I don't know if this is going to be... But this is a TV show, so I can't imagine it's got anything connected to Wonder Woman whatsoever, if it's just a television series. But yeah, that's their Game of Thrones. You know, it's really just underwhelming so far. It's just a disappointment. I just think your announcement should be the main heroes. That's what the announcement should be, not Paradise Lost or Game of Thrones show what? I don't know. I'm really lost.
But with all of the inhabitants of Paradise Island. The introduction of the DCU's Batman is The Brave and the Bold. The Brave and the Bold is the story of Batman and his actual son, Damian Wayne. This is based on Grant Morrison's great comic book run. Damian Wayne is my favorite.
So yeah, I don't know if that's the best idea. It's like before Dick Grayson. You're gonna have his son already in it. You know, I don't know. It could work out. I guess if they have like Nightwing in there and stuff like that, but I imagine most people wouldn't really want to start off with Damian Wayne. Probably rather go with, you know, Dick Grayson. That's what I would probably start with, considering we haven't seen it in anything so far, other than, you know, that film in the 90s, which ain't worth fucking talking about, is it?
Favorite Robin. He's a little assassin who Batman tries to get in line, and so this is the story of the two of them and the beginning of sort of the Bat family in the DCU. Next up is a TV series called Booster Gold. Booster Gold is one of comics' really popular cult heroes. He is a fascinating guy. He's a loser from the future who uses future technology to come back to present day and become a superhero so that people will love him. It is basically the superhero story of imposter syndrome on an HBO Max series.
So that could, again, most of this stuff he's announcing could be good. But again, I just look at this and I'm like, yeah, but most people don't know who the fuck that is. But I suppose it's a TV show. I suppose that makes a little bit of difference. I suppose if it was a movie, I'd be like, Booster Gold. That's the movie you're gonna throw out, right?
One of my favorite comic book series from last year was Tom King's run on Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And so we're going to turn that into a big science fiction epic.
And from what I've heard so far, the mention of Tom King's name to comic book readers should be a red flag. That Tom King is, you know, we shouldn't be. I don't think we should be adapting modern stuff. I don't think that's the best way to go. I don't even know why we're doing a Supergirl movie. Why are we doing Supergirl? That should be a later stage in your DC universe. The idea behind, oh, let's get Supergirl out nice and out. What? Why are you going to do that? So I want to see if that's a film, because that will be what the fourth film. Your fourth film is Supergirl.
Big film. Now, Superman.
So yeah, it is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. It's like, why not call your Superman film Man of Tomorrow? I really don't get that choice. But we're going to listen to what he says about it, because I think it does say something where I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Man is a guy who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents. Whereas Supergirl in this story, she is a character who was raised on a chunk of Krypton.
So she was raised on a chunk of Krypton. I don't know what the fuck. So a chunk of Krypton floating about, and they survived on it, did they? I don't understand. That just sounds daft to me. But so we've got a Supergirl film as the fourth film. The fourth film, you're doing Supergirl.
Watched everybody around her perish in some terrible way. So she's a much more jaded character. And that brings me to Swamp Thing, the last thing.
And this is probably the last thing that I have interest in. This probably sounds like it could be interesting as a Swamp Thing. You know, I don't know much about the character, but he looks interesting. So out of everything so far, the only thing of you know, top tier interest is probably Lanterns and Swamp Thing. I think Superman, again, it's a Superman movie, but I think everything else kind of raises above that at the moment. We're gonna have to find out more on what they're actually doing with Superman, but Swamp Thing could be interesting. But still, it's like we're doing these movies without having set up our main heroes. It's like Swamp Thing should be something that should be brought in maybe in its second phase. But I bringing stuff like this in a first phase, I'm just like, why? You need to set up your main heroes. That should be the key. But, you know, I guess they just want to go different to what DC have already done. So maybe that's the reason behind it. You know, I'm not too sure. But let's finish this off anyway.
We're going to talk about a very dark horror story in the origins of the monster who is Swamp Thing. And although it's totally outside of the rest of the DCU, it will still feed into the rest of the stories. Anyway, those are the stories that I can tell you about right now. I've loved the DC characters since I was a child. They're incredibly important to me. I knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do something very different. One of the things that's very important for me in all of these movies and TV series is that the director's vision and the vision of the writers and all of the creators is unique and something special. Storytelling is always king. That's all that matters to us. And I want to be true to those stories. I want to be true to you guys and really give you something different than you've ever seen before. Anyway, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you watching. I hope this was exciting for you, because it's really exciting for me. And I can't wait to start to dive into these stories with you guys on this grand adventure.
Yeah, I can't say I'm in that excitement with you just from what has been announced. But again, he says it's something different. I don't know if all these things are supposed to come together in some sort of way, but at the moment, from what has been what we know about them, and just because you are releasing, you are restarting your universe, I just don't get it. I don't get it. You know, again, it may become clear once these start coming out, but I don't think the focus should be on, We need a 10-year... No, you just need a good movie. And then another good movie. And take it like that. Step by step. The same way, Marvel did do it. Because, again, the idea that Marvel always had this big plan. No, they didn't. They just made Iron Man. That turned out good. And then they took it from there. Whereas it just seems like we're focusing on having a 10-year plan without even having a good movie out yet. But, who knows? Maybe there is an idea behind it. I don't know, but we've got some other stuff to go over just before we finish off, because James Gunn had some more things to say about this. But as Deadline says, James Gunn and Peter Safran unveil big DC plan with new movies for Batman and Robin, Swamp Thing, The Authority, Lanterns. So, yeah. I'm really I'm not sold on it. I'm not sold on this big idea, but let's just jump in to see what else is said about about this universe. Let's start down here. Safran and Gunn conceived their grand design with an assembled writers' room who riffed off the latter's basic ideas. That group including Christina Hodson, who wrote Birds of Prey, so that's not a good sign. Jeremy Slater, Drew Goddard, from what I've heard, I don't know what he's done, but from what I've heard, he's probably worth having there. Crystal Henry and Tom King. Again, that's obviously a red flag from what I've heard, so doesn't sound too good. Overall, the game plan is 2 movies a year and 2 series for HBO Max in what is an 8 to 10 year plan. As for which projects are right for TV and which for film, Gunn said it's all story-based. To us, storytelling is 100% king. So if it's a story that's more complicated, like The Lanterns or Waller story, I mean, how complicated can a TV show about Waller be? I don't really know. Or has more of an independent TV vibe, like Booster Gold, then that's more suited for television. It has to do with tone, storytelling, and if it's something that we could tell in 2 hours and 10 minutes, because you can't do that with a Waller story, or is it something that we need 7, 8, or 9 hours for? I don't get it with Waller. 8, 9 hours for... I don't get it. I really don't. It might seem like it's all deep universe stuff, straying from the core Batman and Superman of it all. That it does, but there's a method to Gunn and Safran's madness, because it seems like that is what they have been taken by, is madness. To go, what we're going to do is we're going to do some fucking animated slop, and then we're going to go Waller, and then we're going to do a Superman film, and then for our second movie, we're going to do The Authority that no fucker's ever heard of. So I don't think it must be madness. One of our strategies is that we take our diamond characters, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. It doesn't seem like you've done that. You've went Superman, then The Authority. No Wonder Woman to be seen in your first phase. No Wonder Woman. And we use that to help prop up other characters that people don't know. Like what happened with Guardians of the Galaxy in some way, except, again, that Guardians of the Galaxy came out at the end of the phase 2. It wasn't just the second movie. Like taking teams like The Authority, that nobody's heard of, which is I know is just a spectacular idea for a film that is a completely different take on superheroes, because it's really connected to Superman. It's about, though, to use those well-known properties to help lead into lesser-known properties. Yeah, but I don't really know why you would want to do that in your first phase. It's like you want your Supermans and Batmans to be the head honchos at the very forefront, and then you have your other stuff fucking behind them. I don't know why you're using them to prop things up. We're going to promise that everything from our first project forward is going to be unified. But we've gotten very lucky for the next 4 projects. I wouldn't really call that luck, with Shazam, The Flash, and, whatever the other 2 are. So I will say here that Flash is probably one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. With Ezra Miller. All the reshoots. I don't buy it. I think The Flash is going to be absolute dog shit that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So greatest, I guess he's just been told to say that. Then wiping away any doubt about the future of Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, Jason Momoa's Aquaman, and Zachary Levi's Shazam, Safran emphasised these 4 movies are terrific. I don't think any of them are going to be good. There's no reason why any of the characters or the actors that play in those characters are not part of the DCU. There's nothing that prohibits that from happening. So again, I think they're gonna announce that Gal Gadot, Jason Momoa, Zachary Levi are not coming back once the movies are done. Once we're maybe a couple of months on from, what was it, Aquaman's the last one, I don't see them coming back. They're going to get recast. Unless, again, as I said, if these movies do well, then I imagine some of the actors will get kept on. But we'll incorporate characters from the past, but mostly we'll cast anew. Ditto for the creators of these recent projects. Gunn and Safran would love to re-team with Flash filmmaker Andy Muschietti. Currently, James Wan is focusing on finishing Aquaman and The Lost Kingdom. Then there's Blue Beetle on August 18th that sort of has its own world and fits indirectly into... So that doesn't make sense. It has its own world, but it fits directly... which is it? Followed by Aquaman and The Lost Kingdom on Christmas Day, which leads into the universe that Gunn and Safran are mapping out. Again, all these movies are going to be forgotten about anyway. They just don't want to say that because they need people to... If people know that seeing these films has nothing of consequence, most people aren't going to bother with them. So I think that's really what it comes down to. As everyone here probably knows, the history of DC is pretty messed up. There is the Arrowverse, there as the DCU, which then split, became the Joss Whedon Justice League, became the Snyderverse. There were Superman and Lois. There's the Reevesverse. There's all these different things. Even us, we came in and did Suicide Squad, and that became Peacemaker, and all of a sudden, Batmite is a real guy that's never been set up. No one was mending the mint. So this is kind of where Gunn actually gets a bit real. They were just giving away IP like they were party favors to any creators that smiled at them. So just essentially talking about that they were selling off Green Arrow to the CW and just all these things all over the place rather than having it within their own company, and that was it. Which, yeah, that's been part of the problem with DC, at least, now and again. What of Todd Phillips' sequel Joker, Folie à Deux, and Matt Reeves' Batman sequel, which is, apparently it's just called The Batman 2, an HBO Max Penguin series. As previously reported, Safran confirmed that such veers from his and Gunn's plans will be labelled clearly as DC Elseworlds, just like the comics do, and that it's a good thing that you do have that, because then you can do films like Joker, and you don't have to just stick to an in-universe sort of thing. Although I kind of get taken aback when it says also still in the works, Jar Jar Abrams and Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Superman project, a draft, is being waited upon. So that's not a good sign, but it's probably not happening anyway, considering it's been at the draft stage for about 2.5 years. So that's probably not going to happen if they're still waiting on a draft. So, hopefully they don't do it, because it wouldn't be a good idea. The bar is going to be very high for projects out of the DCU. Winking at the history of previous DC films, David Ayer's Suicide Squad and Snyder's Whedon's Justice League productions were known for their reshoots. Gunn promised people have become beholden to dates, to holding dates, to getting movies made no matter what. At the end of the day, I'm a writer at my heart, and we're not going to be making movies before the screenplay is finished. So, we shouldn't even have to be saying that. We shouldn't have to be, it's clearly a dig at Marvel, but we shouldn't even have to be saying that we are not going to shoot the movie until the script is done. Right, that's what it should have always been. I don't know why we've even hit that point where, like, Multiverse of Madness, we have them shooting the film before they've even fucking written it. So that shouldn't even have to be said. but for some, I'm not gonna applaud James Gunn for saying we're gonna make sure the screenplay's finished before we were shooting. It's like, yeah, that's what everybody should be doing. And if that means our plan has to shift a little bit, it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. We're not going to be making movies and putting hundreds of millions of dollars in a film where a screenplay is only 2/3 of the way done. Again, I'm not going to applaud that because that's what it should be anyway. And we have to finish it while we're making the movie. I've seen it happen again and again, and it's a mess. I think it's the primary reason for the deterioration in the quality of films today versus 30 years ago. Gunn mentions how on Suicide Squad he did no reshoots. Again, I'm not going to applaud that because you shouldn't be doing reshoots. Nobody should be. But we now have Multiverse of Madness where they had to reshoot 80% of the fucking movie. So we shouldn't even be in that position, but that's kind of where we are. That we actually have to come out and say, we're not going to do reshoots. We are going to have a screenplay done before we shoot the movie. It's like, yeah, that's normal. And on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, he did a day of picking up. And it's because of having screenplays prepared before we shoot. I don't want to get into this massive spending of hundreds of millions of dollars on reshoots. So yeah, it just kind of goes into what we've already, talked about. Yeah, and it's just, to look over them, I get, you've got Creature Commandos. I don't know why you're leading with that. That seems like something you should just, not even mention. Then you've got Waller, another thing I don't think should... Why is that a thing? Why is it called Waller? I don't know. Superman Legacy, which, from what we know, it's not an origin story, but it is an origin story. So it's a bit all over the place. It's called Superman Legacy. Please be a working title. Because, as I say, that's essentially having Batman Returns as the first movie. It's not, no, Legacy goes at the end. Lanterns, that's one of the things where I'm like, oh, that sounds good. That sounds interesting. Where it's like True Detective, it's a buddy cop sort of thing. That actually sounds really fucking good. That's a great idea. It's a shame that all the others aren't quite up there. Then The Authority, nobody knows about them. It's your second movie. Again, this is the sort of stuff you do after you already have your Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Arrow, Green Lantern. That's you do something like that then. But again, as I have to keep saying, there could be a reason behind it. I really don't know, but I think from the perspective of just the general public, I'm like, if they hear, oh, The Authority, right, what the fuck's that? That's how I kind of see that going over. Unless they have something about them in the Superman movie, I don't know. Paradise Lost. We got to compare it to Game of Thrones for some reason. Stop comparing stuff to Game of Thrones because it's never going to be quite Game of Thrones, is it? It's fucking very different. So I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't seem like Wonder Woman's going to be in that. It's just a TV show, so I don't know. So far, it seems like you're not quite introducing, Wonder Woman. You've got The Brave and the Bold. I can't say I'm a big fan of that name. Where I personally rather have Dick Grayson as Robin rather than his son. What else? Booster Gold. From what I understand, that's a good character. You could do a good story with it. But yeah, it's just I guess that one's fine because it is a TV series. Mainly it's just you need to get people in with your movies. That's how you make your TV shows also successful. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Again, you're doing that for your fourth film, Supergirl. It's like I don't understand that choice. There's just so many choices here, and I'm just like, I don't fucking get it. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. No. Swamp Thing, again, although I'm quite interested in that, I don't know if it's quite the right time for it. I'm not too sure, but that's, I guess, everything we have. Everything we have so far. So that's the lineup. That is our plan for DC's, I guess, just first phase and it's a little underwhelming. It's definitely a disappointment. I don't know what more I can say about it. I'm just like, I was expecting all the heavy hitters. And even then, I'm like, well, we don't need to do that, do we? We can just do a Superman film first, see how it goes. So we don't end up wasting money. You know, it's not gonna work if, you know, because he talks about in that article about we're not going to spend millions of dollars on. Yeah, well, what you don't want to have a load of stuff in development and then your whole thing fucks up, because then it's like, oh well, you've just wasted millions of dollars. You know, I guess I can only say it's not my money, so you know, you can do, I guess, what you want. There may be a reason for everything we've seen. Maybe this is all thought out, and there's a reason behind we're doing the Authority and, you know, Paradise. Maybe there's a reason for it. But I suppose all I can say at this point is we're just gonna have to wait and see, and just again see what he does with it.